for Brainstorming with Puneet Bhatnagar में आपका स्वागत है. I welcome you all, and today is a special day for us as tomorrow is Teachers' Day, and on this occasion, on the eve of Teachers' Day, we have Dr. Lakshmi Kumar. She is founder director of the Orchid School, Pune, a very innovative school. And it goes without saying that Dr. Lakshmi Kumar has introduced many innovative techniques, many innovative approaches to put that kind of a school together. And I have seen her work and seen the kind of difference that she makes. So, Dr. Lakshmi Kumar, you are welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Puneet.
It's a pleasure and I would say a privilege to be with you today. I can promise my friends who are all listening to this that we are going to have a great session together. So, Dr. Kumar, let's start from the very beginning, because as an educationist, you know and I know that the formative years are the most important years in any person's lives. So, tell us about how things started with you, how things began, what made you what you are today.
Mm.
I'm all ears.
Thank you, Puneet, for this wonderful opportunity for a conversation. And before I start, in advance, let me greet my entire community of teachers a very happy Teachers' Day. Having said that, I want to go beyond the traditional definition of a job definition, but someone who touches you and someone who teaches you a lesson. So if you have to, for your question about where it all started, I think one of the biggest beginning was that when life gives you lemon, learn to make the lemonade. That's what my mother taught me. And, I lost my father the day I was born.
Oh.
So you can imagine the kind of arrival, the Big Bang arrival or not so Big Bang arrival, that so to say. And the ride wasn't easy. While you grow up, you ask a lot of questions. Why me? And, how come? And also the circumstances just change for you overnight. My mother had bipolar as an outcome of this trauma and delivery. So you had your basket full. But I think in hindsight, I see that life had stacked a lot of lessons for me. Crucial lessons of resilience. The most important lesson was on resilience and perseverance. It was very clear agenda from my mother to us, all three of us. I have two elder siblings, two brothers, that education is the roadmap to upward mobility. Education is the only way forward. And so she made moves in her life that never compromised on education for us. And I was also very privileged to have had the mother tongue based education. So today when I look at it, I see that, whether it's about creativity, content, thought processes, literature, an entire cultural context, I grew up in a very rich environment. So I think I also learned to define poverty in a very different way. For us, poverty was not just the material, paucity. Instead, we lived in a very enriching environment of cultural, social context. I also had watched her as a young widow and me as a girl. So a whole lot of social dynamics of gender also you begin to, learn in very, very early years. I think that kind of summarizes that
Mm,
be watchful. Life is giving you
mm,
most important and most crucial lessons, and somewhere I felt that every time I had gone through this very tough
mm,
tunnel kind of a journey, I
mm.
always remember the saying that be ready because life is preparing you for a next stage, and so you're getting a training. So I think I did learn to make the lemon.
I can imagine, Lakshmi, the kind of tough childhood you must have, because losing the father on the day one
Mm,
when you
mm.
come in this world is not dramatic, it's rather
It
traumatic. As
was,
you,
but when I think about it, I think it was even more traumatic for my brothers who were very
yeah,
young boys,
yeah.
So, or for her, for that matter, a partner, life partner,
Hmm, hmm,
such a young age, and suddenly life is
hmm,
just changed.
hmm,
But I guess we don't have a choice. A lot of time, you start with where what is given to you, and I may be sounding very simplistic about it,
hmm,
but I think when you look at a summary of life, you always look at it in hindsight,
hmm,
and you say that I'm glad I was chosen for that.
hmm. No, and I can understand what you are talking about, because I lost my mother when I was 10.
Oh,
So,
I'm so
so,
sorry.
so I know what it means.
Mm, mm, mm,
And I have seen my father struggle,
mm,
because
mm,
we
mm,
were three kids,
mm,
and he was in an administrative job.
mm,
He had
mm,
to go on tours, and he was
mm,
worried about us as well. I was
mm,
10, and my younger brother was 4 at that time.
mm,
So,
mm.
so I can
Yeah, I
understand.
mean, yeah. So
I can,
again, both of us probably had this role model of a parent
yeah,
doubling up as both mother and father,
mother and father. So,
and also they were making big and small decisions. They
yeah,
were the head of the family.
they were
I
head
mean,
of the
one
family.
person. She played all the role of decision maker.
Mm. And especially in your case, when I see, uh, being a single mother is
Mm.
even more tough, even more tough. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
even more tough.
yeah. And
And
society doesn't give you a very easy
mm,
statement, easy situation to deal with. Yeah.
mm.
But amidst all this, she had clarity of what she wanted to do.
And I would also share with you something, that I'm very close to the bipolar community in India.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
Vijay Nallawala, who is the founder of that community, is a close friend.
mhm,
Uh, he was a bipolar. We say he was a
mm,
bipolar because
mm,
he's
mm,
managing his life so well,
mm,
and inspiring so many people.
mm,
Inspiring so many people.
mm,
And so I understand, working with him, uh,
mm,
what bipolar is
mm,
and what
mm.
kind of effect it can have
Yeah, yeah,
on the person herself, the caregivers.
absolutely. The
Uh,
entire family.
yeah, I know those, the polarities, the manic phases, and
Mm, mm.
when
And
you are,
yeah, and those were the times very little was even understood,
yeah,
and one could have easily summarized as, oh, a woman who lost a husband who is having a extended grief. It
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
that at all. It was very clearly kind of chemical induced and trauma induced,
Mm.
and she lived with it till the end.
And I'm very happy that she lived with it successfully. She
Yes, yes.
nurtured kids like you, and like you said, you have, what you remember is basically the culturally rich environment.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think, yeah, so when you said you look at poverty very differently, I understand many people might have the material riches,
Yeah, yeah.
but
And we didn't have fancy meals,
yeah,
but we always wondered how did she manage to give the meals, And in her, she was an extremely productive face of manic phase.
Mm-hmm.
She was so goal driven, so to say. She was very clear on what she wanted out of, and maybe she has probably made a commitment to my father. So
Mm-hmm.
she was single handedly driving this dream that they may have shared with each other. So in that sense, her manic state was very, very
Mm-hmm.
clearly focused.
Yeah. So tell me, she must have a deep impression on you.
Oh yes,
I'm very sure. Uh,
definitely.
Apart from her in your schooling days, uh, what else impressed you? Or were there some teachers who mentored you, who taught you lessons which are still with you today?
Um, I want to borrow one of the lessons that my brothers had, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So when we had to move for our school education, we moved to a small town called Palayamkotte, which is a very,
Okay.
very,
Mm-hmm.
educational center, very missionary education center.
Mm-hmm.
And both my brothers were going to school St. Xavier's, very
Mm-hmm.
Jesuit priests.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in $7, the Seventh Day Adventist at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but what I experienced at that time was that while they were in that context of missionary service, they were genuine mentors for education. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they saw, for example, all three of us having potential in education. So
Mm-hmm.
they would go out of their way to
Mm-hmm.
cross the what you would call the religious caste boundaries. Because remember, I'm talking about the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
deeply entrenched, and the whole non not so trusting relationship between communities.
Yeah.
But I remember them as very great visionaries, looking at the potential of a student
Mm-hmm.
and very actively saying that I will come and speak to your mother, because my first brother is an amazing mathematician. But
Okay.
after the
Mm-hmm.
graduation, of course, we were looking at whether he should go for a job. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember this teacher talking about, if you want, I will come and speak to your parent, because you should not be lost in the ocean of just the chasing of another job.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is what stayed with me, that they were selfless. They
Mm-hmm.
were very focused on student achievement, and they went out of their way. They genuinely dedicated their life to the cause of education. And today, when I look back,
Mm-hmm.
I really, my heart is filled with gratitude for, because, again, we were not very rich kids, and this school had all kinds of kids coming from different communities, different
Mm-hmm.
economic background. But they were looking at the potentialities, they were looking at the possibilities for students. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that I would keep very close to my heart as an educator.
I think that's a very important lesson, very, very important lesson. And so from there, from his, from the school, you went for higher studies. What you did?
Yeah, from a very small town, village, you call it, and I was in the big bad Bombay city for my graduation,
From
because my
village to
brothers, yeah,
from village to
my
Mumbai.
brothers got a job, and so,
Right.
I finished my what you call the pre-university. Then I moved to Mumbai.
Mm.
Uh, I think that too was part of the design, I think.
Yeah.
I of course came with very high scores,
Mm-hmm.
but very low confidence.
Oh,
Mumbai
yes.
can be very intimidating. For me, coming to Mumbai was like, for let's say, for my Swedish students coming from Sweden to Pune, it was that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a double-decker bus. I've never seen these many people.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived in a community where our doors never closed,
mm, mm, mm,
and I've lived in a temple street, so there
mm.
was a lot of closeness with the communities. Everybody knew everyone,
Yeah.
and everywhere, So we uh, to move to Mumbai
Mm.
was complete. Uh, 1 minute.
Yep.
Okay. There is a feedback that people can't hear me
So
in the.
I can hear you very well.
Okay. Okay. On the FB Live.
Uh, 1 minute. Let us check there also.
Okay. My daughter is giving me a feedback that can't hear clearly in the FB Live.
Okay, well, I'm just checking out. I'm just checking
Okay.
out.
Okay.
And okay, uh, I don't know because I can hear you so well. I can hear
Okay.
you so well.
Okay. Let's
So
continue.
let us do it,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So moving to Mumbai was for me a milestone.
Okay.
So I remember standing. I wanted to become a astrophysicist. I was so fond of physics, so I went to this very upmarket school college and stood in
Mm,
line for getting my admission form, and
mm.
I felt very intimidated that I don't belong. So I came home and told my brothers that I will do correspondence course or let me go
Okay.
back to the village. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my brothers didn't, and especially my second one didn't give in at all.
Mm,
So next
mm,
day he took me to SNDT. He said maybe you'll feel more comfortable because I came from a girls' school.
mm,
So for
mm,
me, studying in a co-ed college was a challenge. I
mm,
wasn't comfortable,
mm,
and nor did I look very fashionable. I came with my
mm,
half sari.
mm,
I couldn't speak English very
mm,
fluently, and
mm.
when I spoke, I had the what the Bollywood shows as the Tamil accent.
Yep. Mm,
So I wasn't at all a fit. So second day, my brother took me to SNDT and chod diya udhar.
okay.
He said, figure out.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
1 week I went home and cried. But
mm, mm,
I think first day he came with me from Kandivali to Juhu, but
mm,
rest of the days we had to figure out.
mm.
And I think the fourth day I was ragged
Okay.
and I was locked in the college toilet.
Okay.
Yeah, and the corridors were empty.
Mm,
So knocking the door and feeling
mm,
absolutely petrified.
mm,
Uh, yeah, it kind of gave me an insight that very quickly people figure out whether you belong or you don't
mm.
belong.
Yeah.
uh, but I knew that I had no choice,
Mm,
and I'm
mm,
glad my brother didn't give me a choice.
mm, mm,
So again, that whole resilience and perseverance,
mm,
I have to make it.
mm,
There is no
mm,
option of letting go. So I remember that I didn't have friends because I was not fashionable and I couldn't
mm,
speak well, and I didn't
mm.
have much common interest, and I had to, kind of build up my life. So I would spend all my time in the library,
Okay. Okay.
poring over
Mm,
beyond the textbooks.
mm,
And my first semester exam, I
mm,
think I must have written some marvelous
mm,
thesis or something that
mm,
uh,
mm.
I came with a result that was like breaking the ceiling, the glass
Okay.
ceiling, so to say.
Mm,
And I still remember the day when the principal walked into the classroom, and I was quite a last bencher in that sense. Now, partly because there wasn't anyone who would connect with me.
mm,
And she kind of said that I want to meet the student
mm,
who has
mm.
actually, written in a way that it's been a lesson for the teachers.
Oh my God.
Because I
Mm.
had read so much that I began to kind
Yeah,
of give more than the normal right answer, so to say.
it was much
Yeah,
more than what was there in the
yeah, yeah.
textbook. Yeah,
And I never believed in this one right answer. That was
mm,
also my childhood trait. If I remember my family would say, with Lakshmi, when you say why, her answer would be why not, you know.
fine.
So
Yeah.
when the
Mm,
principal announced my name,
mm.
and the entire class turned behind to notice me for the first time.
Was,
And for me, that's one of the most crucial principles of education,
mm,
that a teacher needs to notice the student.
mm,
And the teacher needs to make an effort to make a student noticeable.
mm,
And I think first time my classmates noticed me as some person who is worth, and I felt that okay, in the world of, I had classmates who were like Om Puri's daughter.
okay, okay.
Yeah. And I thought I would never make an impact, in the world which was, and Juhu,
Yeah,
very high
do.
on fashion
Yeah,
and very high on money.
yeah,
And
yeah.
suddenly I realized that, well, actually, intellectual power also has its own beauty. And I think I never had a turn back after that. I was always with friends, and for me suddenly a social context got changed.
Changed. Yeah.
But all along my mind was looking for answers for my mother's bipolar. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to understand mental health. I wanted to really go deep into it.
Mm,
So my natural choice for my higher education after that was to go to TIS, and to
okay,
study medical and psychiatric social work. I said
okay.
I need to resolve a lot of questions within me. I need to find,
Mm,
I need to connect the dots of my life,
yeah.
and I need to heal myself before I can enter the healing profession.
That's
And
so
for me, yeah, for me, TIS was the right place. Yeah,
good. This is a great place for
yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of approach, that kind of those kind of questions. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
And for me, it was every time I attended, psychiatric lessons, every
mm,
time I would go for my field visit. I was in Nair Hospital with the psychiatric department, OPD.
mm,
I began to feel a sense of, well, it's not anything abnormal. I
mm,
didn't feel, I began to get a sense of self acceptance,
okay.
and that I wasn't ashamed of, because till then I didn't have answers, that
Mm,
I wasn't guilty or I wasn't ashamed. I said, oh, there is a way that we can deal with. Though, again in the 80s, bipolar was not spoken about, and we didn't
yeah.
have great medicines, and it was only, maybe sleeping doses. That's all. Psychotropic drugs were not very easily, it wasn't a commonplace.
Even today, Lakshmi, people, when I say people, even doctors, they don't know when they meet one bipolar, they don't know that he's a bipolar.
Yeah.
And so I
And I
understand.
think we don't understand that, I remember my mother, psychiatrist, one day sitting and talking about, there is no impairment in her intellectual process. It is her
Mm-hmm.
emotions,
Yeah.
because she was logical, she was rational,
Yeah.
she had amazing memory,
Mm.
so everybody around us wondered, that then how come she's not well. And then I remember him decoding this to us.
Mm-hmm. So now, Lakshmi, tell me, now I understand. When I look to your work, which is more about humanizing the education, now I know where you are coming from, and all of us who are listening to you would understand that how one matures from childhood impressions. And so now, how you started putting it into educational world, whatever you learned.
Just before that, I want to share one very, very significant childhood memory.
Okay, yeah.
In that Seventh Day Adventist school, whenever Mother Superior will have her birthday,
Mm-hmm.
we had to go with some fruit to greet her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, depending on what you can afford, kids got apple, oranges, musumbi, peru, and I would carry at the most a lemon. That's
Mm-hmm.
all my grandfather would give me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember by default, I will be one of the last in the line.
Okay. Okay.
Nobody pushed me.
Mm.
But as a child, you quite quickly figure out the economic hierarchies. You quite
Yeah.
quickly figure out, or quite quickly, somewhere the society tells you where you belong. And
Very
I
good.
remember making that resolve, that when and if I were to, I will reverse the order.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, equity is an important centrality of education. And equity in terms of all stakeholders, equity in terms of providing opportunities. When I say equity, doesn't mean that we give the same to everyone, but we give everyone something in a way that everyone can reach, everyone has that possibility to reach.
Oh,
So for me, that was a very central theme of education.
Lakshmi, that's so insightful. Just now, when you said, and now I understand, when you said the society, without even saying anything, they tells you where you belong.
Yeah,
I,
and
I, I, I
as a
think,
child, I think we all must remember, Puneet,
yeah, yeah.
we all must recall our childhood when we work with children. I think
Hmm.
we would be better adults
Yeah,
because
I think,
we have done everything that our children are doing, but we somehow forget it and we get into this moralizing. I mean, we
mm-hmm.
have copied and we have cheated and we have lied
Yeah,
and we have broken and we have had heartbroken moments and we wanted the boy to look at us and
yeah,
we
definitely.
wanted, we
Yes, yes, yes.
wanted that pen that other friend is carrying, and we were always interested in somebody's lunch box.
Yeah, we are all human beings,
Yeah, and
and these
yeah,
are all very natural things that happen to us.
yeah, and just because
Uh,
we have become adults, keep in touch with your childhood, and you would not be very far from the child with which you're working.
yep. Yep. So that's a again and again. Maybe I would repeat it because I think I never thought of it. Lakshmi, the way you put it, that society has its own ways of telling you where you belong, and I think, and without telling us,
Absolutely.
and it can happen even with kids, even with kids, because
Oh, yes,
some kid come to school in a posh car, and somebody would come in a rickshaw. Uh,
totally.
and I totally understand what you are saying because,
Yeah,
uh,
we used to have group. I'm talking
yeah,
about grade 5 when I was.
yeah,
We would be called the Upma eating gang because we had this
okay,
midday meal khana free milta tha.
okay, okay, okay,
So,
okay.
today we probably call it in another form, which is
Mm,
what we would call it the RT admission, which I
yeah,
think is the most, terrible form of labeling. But we were called the Upma eating gang.
okay.
So the minute, ye to Upma wali hai, that means
Probably.
the child is definitely
Yeah,
coming from a, low
and, and,
economic
and,
background.
and children have their own ways of creating
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
they constantly unfold what they see in the adults.
yeah,
If children are segregating, if children are not inclusive, if children are not accommodating, if children are not respectful, you don't have to look anywhere. They are just mirroring what the adults have shown to them.
yes. So, Lakshmi, with all these insights, you have created a great school, and I have visited the school, and I have seen your kids. They are so innovative. They are so creative, and not just that. I have seen them being entrepreneurial, where they are running their own businesses while they are in class 10, 9,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I have seen them, and they are so confident. I would like to know how and what experiments you did in your school, or what kind of approach you apply, which we see in the form of their behavior.
Hmm. You know, I think when you build school,
Hmm.
you must remember that the walls that we build around can be very limiting. I'm saying it literally and symbolically.
Okay.
So, as educators, we need to consciously break those walls.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, One of the walls that we build in school, unfortunately,
Hmm.
is hierarchy,
Yes. Hmm.
authority,
Hmm.
and fear. And we call fear in a very veiled, nice word called discipline. And we definitely need to redefine these three.
Hmm.
We may require some of it as a structure and organizational requirement,
Hmm. Hmm.
but that cannot become the centrality. The centrality is the student first.
Okay.
And that constant reminder that I am here because of them, not the
Hmm.
other way around,
Hmm.
reminds you, and it's very humbling for you. You know, that the whole, in fact, they are the masters of this universe.
Okay.
It's ironic that John Dewey, who's such a well-known educationist and pedagogues, and
Hmm.
for a lot of us was a guru,
Hmm.
wrote about democracy in education.
Okay.
And ironically, this is the least democratic space that we have built. Everything is pre-decided for the students,
Yes.
including the rules and curriculum. Which
Hmm.
school that they should go to is decided by someone. What they should wear is decided by someone.
Hmm.
Where they should sit is decided by someone. With whom you should sit is decided by someone.
Someone.
And everything is pre-decided. And then we suddenly want to artificially include decision making skills as a subject.
Okay. Yes.
So I think for me, when I began to build this institution with a team of equally important visionaries and
Hmm. Hmm.
leaders with me, the most important thing was what are the walls that we need to break,
Hmm. Hmm.
and what is that? How do we see this ecosystem from the child's point of view? So we
Hmm.
very consciously removed the power distance,
Okay.
consciously removed the fear.
Hmm.
So today, some people can compliment me saying, "Oh, children are not scared of you,"
Yes.
or some people can make that as a criticism. "Oh, children are not at all scared here that they can say anything."
Anything. Yes.
But I say that they must say anything because this is the space for them to learn, make mistakes, experiment, argue. So for us, the critical thinking or working with in a collaboration, it shouldn't be a farce. I mean, I have
What?
often criticized this. Puneet, I remember telling you,
Hmm.
whole life we teach the children collaboration,
Hmm.
and we
Hmm.
kill it with one thing called the exam. That is the least collaborative.
So one thing before we move ahead, Lakshmi, you said we broke the walls, and you said we took out fear. I'm really interested. How you do it? What you did it to make it happen?
For example, starting with we are not called the sir and madam. We
Okay.
are called only these and thus. You may
Okay.
say, but that's a very cosmetic way.
Yes. Yes.
The second thing is that if you look at our principals or my office or all so-called role holders,
Hmm.
our doors are never closed.
Okay.
One of the very clear communication is the child must have access to us all times and any
Okay.
time.
Okay.
And nobody is waiting outside our door for long hours.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And our children can actually sit across and discuss and debate and say,
Hmm.
"Dee, what you're doing is not right."
Okay. mm,
and that we can actually sit down and discuss it, and we can actually, if at all something need to be undone from our side, we can actually do that, and children know that.
mm, mm.
And we don't have these kind of very humiliating punishments.
Okay.
And I think that's also a way of removing the fear,
Mm,
and there is more room for conversations.
mm,
And sometimes our new teachers find it very confusing,
mm,
because you don't have this prescription. Sir dukh raha hai to ye dawai de do, pet
mm,
dukh raha hai to ye dawai de do. If a child breaks this rule, ye kar lo. Like the Tare Zameen Pe, we know that there is no point sending the child outside the classroom.
mm,
So it looks very exhaustive and very exhausting and very dialogic.
mm,
And this one thing that our children know is that making the boogie woman out of these top leaders doesn't work in the school.
mm,
Chalo abhi director ke room pe. There may be a little bit of a respect, fear, so to
mm,
say. They know then that has really gotten very serious.
mm,
But it doesn't. We don't have to parade the student, or we don't have to rule the mind with fear.
mm.
And hence, if you look at our organization, or I keep saying that most important thing for us to build not a wall, but the school climate.
Yes.
You know, and the school climate is not built with rules.
Mm,
School climate is built on people to people connect, people to people experiences. And
mm.
again, the children must see you walking the talk. If
Yes.
you're not going to sit next to your maushi or a security kaka and have lunch,
Mm,
they're not going to do it. Whereas if our children see us dancing during a teacher's day with our
mm,
maushis and kakas and all the teachers,
mm.
they think it's not anything abnormal.
So
But one
you
has to be very conscious of these.
you teach them inclusivity not through books but through actual
Yeah, yeah, and
actual behavior.
that's the only way that you can actually teach them,
Mm,
because they see through your facade otherwise.
mm,
I
mm,
remember, when we go for our annual retreat to
mm,
Panchgani,
mm,
entire staff, you
mm,
know, all the service, admin,
mm,
leaders, everyone, and the student leadership group. Okay.
mm,
And how do we share our room in Panchgani?
mm.
Lottery.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember once, one of the year, I had a Maushi as
Mm,
my roommate.
mm,
She sat and cried for 1 hour,
mm, mm, mm.
that she was so worried and so afraid and so scared that she has to share a room with the director.
Yeah.
And that's an insight for us, that what have we done with our titles? What have
Yes.
we used our titles for, to segregate and distance ourselves?
Mm,
I can understand that she's a bit uncomfortable,
yeah.
but it took many years for even some of my staff members to see that just share a room one night, you're going to stay, nothing is going to change. But with
Mm,
that, you're changing the social equation of your team members.
mm,
And that, I think that goes a very long way in institutional building process.
mm.
So I think walk the talk,
Yeah.
all the ethos has to translate into action.
I think that's a great example, Lakshmi, because many people they put big mission statements and vision statements on the wall, and but actually it never happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so when I saw your biodata talking about inclusivity, now I know what inclusivity is for you and the way you
I think when you include, you become very enriched.
yes.
You bring so much diversity inside, and diversity in terms of social, culturally, economic, and sometimes political viewpoints. Of course, gender. And India is so diverse in terms of the languages, and coming from different regions. So why do we need to segregate?
Yeah, and we learn a lot. We learn a lot too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a learning process to meet someone who is very different from you.
Yeah, and even today, MRA, the Asia, Asia Plateau, the Initiatives for Change organization, talks about our staff retreat.
Okay.
That we genuinely want to be together. And I remember one year we thought, our Maushi, some of them had issues of overnight because families were not allowing. So we
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, we'll do a day trip for you and in Mulshi.
Mm-hmm.
All of them came back and said, no, we'll fight with our family, but
Mm-hmm.
we want to be with all of you.
Mm-hmm.
For them, that is an important symbol of inclusion.
Yes. So, but what about the discipline? Because most school they feel a lot of pride that our students are like well disciplined. They don't talk. They don't make noises.
Yeah,
They have good uniforms.
yeah, surely.
What about that?
Uh, I mean, if you don't want noise, then you probably should not be running a school.
Mm,
You know, if you cannot enjoy the noise of children,
mm, mm,
then close the school and maybe do a old age care. I mean, I think
mm,
again aligning yourself with what
mm,
population you serve. For me, I think we have put so much energy on the peripherals of discipline.
mm, mm,
uh, for Puneet.
mm,
Uh, that hair should be two braids, no
mm,
long earrings,
mm,
bindi mat lagao, or the shoe has to be this,
mm,
and maybe for some school it's important.
mm.
For me, I asked my team that let's ask this question: How is it promoting learning environment?
Yeah.
You know, is it really necessary?
Mm,
If you were to say uniform is all about, neutralizing the class, hey,
mm,
we can wear our class in so many hundred different ways. It
mm,
doesn't
mm.
end up in the uniform.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you can
Mm,
neutralize it with uniform, and then children bring different lunch boxes, geometry
yes.
boxes, pen
Mm,
boxes, how they come to school, where they go for vacation, and what
yeah.
serial do they
Mm,
watch, what phone today they are carrying. So you
mm.
have 1 million
Yeah.
ways of displaying your wealth. Okay. So
Mm,
let's not
mm,
fool ourselves. I can
mm,
understand that we need uniform as an identity, maybe.
mm,
But don't put your energy on the peripherals of,
mm.
I mean, a 3.5-year-old wearing a tie today. He
Yeah.
is required.
And in India, which is that much is
Yeah, and in 42 degrees, I've seen kids wearing blazers. Okay.
yes. Yeah.
I mean, come on. Education is about questioning those mindset that we have been given through the colonial past.
Yes.
But we are the preservers of some of those. And here is an opportunity as an educationist for you to question those, leave the peripherals.
Mm,
What are some of the core aspects of discipline?
mm,
Teach them that. And for me, I think the most important discipline is the self discipline. Self discipline in terms of rationalizing, in terms of examining the options that I have, choices
mm,
that I make, and for every choice, the consequence that I will experience. It's
mm,
very long drawn, it's very exhausting, it's very confusing for most people, but it's
mm.
a most sustainable choice.
So,
Because we must remember this, Puneet, that as a parent or as a teacher, as an educator,
mm,
I'm not going to shadow my child's life forever.
mm, mm,
12 years, the child is gone. So
mm,
please teach that child to fish. And
mm.
self discipline is part of the fishing agenda, teaching to fish agenda, rather than, that you're copying, I give you zero.
Yes.
Instead, can I train you to have an invigilationless classroom where
Mm,
you don't copy and that you exercise your inner integrity?
mm.
It's very exhausting. But
Yes.
what a lifelong lesson. If schools can pause and say, where is for me an opportunity to teach a self discipline? I think that's where we will be genuinely doing a real important service of lifelong learning for our children.
Yeah, these are some very important things, Lakshmi. I'm just making notes. I'm, I am saying that question, all this discipline, A to Z, whatever it uh, is it helping the child to learn? That's a great question to ask. There's the acid test. That is the acid test. If it helps, then it's okay. If it doesn't help, then why? Why we are putting so much energy on it? Yes. So,
And
and
also let's understand, Puneet, that we are running schools in today's context where children's social world is shrunk. And probably children are experiencing a lot more at home. So school does become a place of catharsis.
yep, yep,
So help them regulate those emotions, guide them, support them, and give definitely some consequences. But we don't have to, kind of say in a way that we reject the child, but we say very clearly that your behavior is not appreciated. And there are 100 ways of doing it.
I think we should have a session only on those aspects. Really, and I'm very serious about it. Maybe I'll sit with some of you together and ask you some 100 questions.
Yeah,
Not for a for an hour, but say the full day.
yeah, yeah. I think we need to remember that our time is running out with our children's life. So
Hmm.
let's not think that I'm going to be there. There's a very, very beautiful saying, I'm sure in every language, that,
Hmm.
you are on a long journey, Puneet. Let's
Hmm.
say 1 month, 1 year, 10
Hmm.
years, 1 decade. I cannot pack food for you for your journey.
Yeah,
There's a very
beautiful.
beautiful
That's
saying,
beautiful. Yeah.
but as an educator, can I train you in a way that you know how to seek your food?
Hmm.
Beg, borrow, or make, or, go fish, whatever. But the
Hmm.
most important thing is that I should not think of me as such an indispensable, co-journey member in your life.
Yeah. So, so in a way, teacher should not become a limitation, a shackle in the life of the student. Rather, we should liberate them,
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
give them the wings so that they can fly wherever they want
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah. And they will
And
remember us. They may not return to us.
mm,
We are not the, beginning and end of their life. And I think that's where our scriptures have given us the stages
mm.
of a teacher to Acharya.
Yeah, Guru, Acharya,
Mm, mm,
and again, Acharya is somebody who put things into his achar.
yeah,
He walks the talk. I think that's exactly what it is.
yeah,
And so, Lakshmi, I'm really happy to talk to you to understand because many people talk about progressive education, but to see it in practical application is something totally different. And
but Puneet, again, everybody will teach you English, math. I mean, let's not reduce our schools to a coaching center.
yes,
School is a secondary, significant institution for socialization,
yeah,
where जो values घर पे नहीं सिखाए, at least
mm,
there is a second chance, so to
mm,
say, for the children,
mm,
second
mm,
chance for them to find themselves,
mm.
and this is beyond the
And,
subject.
and what you are saying, Lakshmi, is totally so 180 degree to what many schools say. They say we can only teach them the textbook. Values to घर में ही सिखाना पड़ेगा.
No,
Yeah,
we have to complement. We just
yeah,
child is there in the school ecosystem where things that are taught in school cannot be taught at home.
yeah,
In
yeah,
at
yeah,
home, a child father will always lose to the child in a game,
yeah,
but in school they are not going to do that.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I think we need to really remember that what are the process of socialization is about.
Mm,
It's about shaping the child into a well-being, a well human being for the society. And we know that we do require some math and English and science and all that. I'm not at all undermining,
Yeah, yeah.
but
No,
more
but
than that, we
what
require.
I'm amazed. I'm interrupting you, but what I'm amazed is uh, two things. One is you are saying that values तो हम सिखा दें घर पे सीखेगा या नहीं सीखेगा, which I haven't heard from many schools. And number two, in today's society and the exam system, schools have become a place of stress. Stress. Kids, they really fear it.
Yeah,
And on the other hand, now what you are talking about is catharsis. That if they have some kind of stress at home, they might come here and they release
it is
it.
happening. It is
Yeah,
happening. Our children don't. I mean, a lot of our children today are in a very rich home, but in a very extremely deprived social environment.
yeah,
They don't have genuine social challenges. They don't have generational wisdom, with we grew up as grandparents, and we had our summer vacations where 15 cousins were in one
yeah.
place. A lot of those deprivations have already seeped in.
Yeah, I think the roots are lost at in somewhere. The
Yeah,
roots.
yeah.
Many of us don't have roots.
Yeah,
We,
absolutely, absolutely. And school is a place where you're teaching them to say no when you want to say yes, don't say no, or when you want to say no, don't say yes. You're talking about peer pressure, you're talking about collaboration, you're talking about the cooperation, you're talking about compassion. These are very core skills that are not found in textbooks, that you will only be able to provide when you create a human to human interaction. And our classrooms are about that.
that's a great lesson because today many people ask me when I go for training. They say, "Sir, everything is there on Google," and I say, what Google can't do, perhaps I would do for you. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah. And,
Google will,
just want to give this tribute to my teachers
yeah,
that more than ever, the
mhm,
world has shown that what Google can't do, only
mhm.
teachers can do, is that personal connect, and that is missing in pandemic time. And still, our teachers are somehow penetrating those screens and reaching out to each child. I think we never need to feel that whether we will become redundant and obsolete. No, as long as education is about human connect, as long as education is about elevation of human beings, as long as education is about building that community, teachers would never be outdated or out of job. It's only teachers who
I,
can do that.
I feel it's not a job because I have got some great teachers in my life. And I say it again and again because I am homeschooling my daughter. And when we started with the homeschooling, the first question in my mind was, what about teachers? Because
Mm,
I have got some great teachers in my life.
mm, mm,
And where from she would meet those kind of people. And so
mm,
we
mm,
made sure that
mm,
she's always with some good mentors, some good teachers, even
mm,
if she's at
mm,
home.
mm.
I don't think it is a job. I don't put teaching
No,
as
yeah,
a
yeah. I think that's a wrong. It is a vocation. It is a call. But I'm just saying that we don't have we have seen it now with this online that
Hmm.
our children are longing to come back to school,
Yes. Yes.
and I
Yeah.
think that's the best compliment that we can have.
Yeah. Kids want to come to school.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
great,
yeah,
great.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we have learned a lot, Lakshmi, today, and you have underlined so many concepts which we have heard about sometimes. Some of them are totally new to me, uh, and you have a rich experience of your own work. But yet, I would like to know that you also work with other countries, intercultural assignments. Uh, and as far as I know, you work very closely with Sweden.
Yes.
And recently, again, Sweden has got this ranking for becoming the second most innovative country in the world.
Hmm.
And I work in the area of creativity and innovation. So
Mm.
from that angle, and this is a show about creativity, about thinking in new ways in life. So I would like to know some of the things that you think we can learn from those societies.
Um, yeah, I have been working with Sweden for 25 years.
Oh my God, yes,
So for me, it's a second home. I think I have both personal and professional insights.
mm,
I think one of the most significant insight that I carry with me, when I see the teacher-student relationship,
oh, mm,
that is completely on the basis of respect and trust.
mm,
The other important thing that I see, which is very core to their society, that I've observed both at a personal and professional
mm,
context, is autonomy.
okay,
That it could be because their structures have to build that self-help, you
mm,
know, relying on self individualization, because that's how the society is constructed.
mm,
But with autonomy, they have absolute freedom,
mm,
and somehow we think that's the end of the story.
okay,
But
mm,
the
mm,
most important story which I see when you enter the society is that with that absolute freedom, there is absolute responsibility.
important, yes,
Yeah. You know, I remember when my junior college students had gone on an exchange and they came back
mm,
and they had 5 or 6 wish lists.
mm, mm,
One of it is that we must have like a small cafeteria hangout place in the atrium. We
okay,
must
mm,
have free Wi-Fi and many
mm,
like those, what you will call
whatever,
again the peripheral symbols of the
mm,
Coca-Colaization and the McDonaldization
mm,
elements of a society.
mm,
I said, fair enough. I'm willing to grant you all that we can set it up.
mm,
But I have three uh, demands or wish list along with that.
mm,
Because in Sweden, especially at a higher secondary level, you fail, there is nobody who is going to come and argue for
mm,
you.
mm,
You forget,
mm.
there is no one who is waking you up with the alarm and utho beta,
बेटा
garam
उठो
garam
स्कूल का
paratha
टाइम
kha
हो गया
lo, dabba leke jao, homework karo. It's
हम्म,
all on you.
हम्म,
You fail, the state doesn't give you money.
हम्म,
Okay? And hence the students have total responsibility. And I'm
हम्म,
not saying all students are successful, but
हम्म,
you are left with no choice but to be responsible for your laundry,
हम्म,
for your timetable,
हम्म,
for waking up and going to school on time,
हम्म,
and your home assignments because there is nobody.
हम्म,
Now, we may say that, but their society is fragmented. So I keep telling, that we cannot selectively take, and I told my students that, uh, and I say this also to the teachers, I remember once when I was doing a co-teaching with a teacher,
हम्म,
and he was teaching an English poem or some kind of a poem, and we were cooking a meal from that region as part of the activity.
okay,
Okay. And then when the class got over, students ate, and he said, "Okay, kids, go out and have a game of
हम्म,
football."
हम्म,
And he was picking up and cleaning the dishes.
okay,
There was no pune, there was no maushi, there was no ding, ding, ding bell.
हम्म,
It was his job. So I
हम्म,
told the students, can we bring that sense of dignity of work?
हम्म, हम्म,
Or there is nobody who's going to you can give your paper for photocopying.
हम्म,
Photocopy karna hai, utho, go to the photocopy machine and do it. Or for that matter, can we bring the gender equity that Sweden is known for?
हम्म,
So I think it's for us very, very important to look at the whole narrative. And
mm,
but unfortunately, I mean, it's interesting when I'm sitting with my friend in the car and going, when I
mm,
hear their version of Radio Mirchi, Megapole.
mm,
If you hadn't kind of comprehended the language, it looks like, it sounds exactly like Radio Mirchi.
mm,
That's very
mm,
easy to borrow, Puneet.
mm, mm,
But respect for elderly, respect
mm,
for people with disabilities and
mm,
challenges,
mm,
inclusion, or respect for the people with sexual orientations,
mm.
that we could borrow very quickly. I think for me, the cultural collaboration is about going into the deeper level of what we can really bring back, and not the peripherals of their facilities. So again, I'm
Great,
going back
great.
to education is about the core and not the peripherals.
That's a great learning. There's a great insight there. And really, because sometimes we see those societies and we would like to take वो चमकती हुई चीजें हमको अच्छी
Yeah,
लगती
yeah.
हैं.
Yeah, it's very easy for us to bring the H&M here and the Zara and the,
Mm, mm.
those brands. And now we have IKEA. But
Yeah,
IKEA is an attitude for
but
them. IKEA is a value for them.
it again,
IKEA is about,
do it yourself, make it yourself.
yeah,
Same thing.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, we talk about Japanese kids washing the toilet.
mm,
Really, in India, if I were to ask the children one day, even as a activity of
mm,
compassion or empathy, wash
mm.
the toilet, I will have 2,900 complaints.
Yeah.
I think that's where we again miss the plot of what exactly do we want to bring from other cultures.
So we have
Time
this.
is gone. Time is over
Time
nearly.
is over, and we can go on and on. Not a
Yeah,
problem, but
yeah.
yet we have to respect other people's time. We promise them 1 hour.
Yes, yes.
Actually, I think we have 70 minutes now. And so, Lakshmi, it was a great experience talking to you, and we learned so many things, so many things. And I always wanted to ask you many questions to go deeper into your work because the first time I met you and the first time I visited your school, I said I need to know more about them.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for this conversation,
no,
Puneet.
it's great. So, and we learned so much, and I think walking the talk is one of the important things. Becoming acharya, achari. I think that's a great learning for all of us who are teachers.
Yes,
Me
yes.
myself, though I'm a corporate trainer, I always think of myself as somebody who is teaching people,
Mm,
helping people to learn.
mm, mm.
Then I like that whole thing of school being a place where there is no fear, and a true learning can happen only in those kind of circumstances.
Absolutely.
And
Otherwise, we
you,
might as well build prisons, my dear.
yeah, and and I just loved it when you said if you don't like those noises, shut the school because
Yeah, yeah.
if kids don't make noises, what is the difference between them?
I
And
think the day we can become intolerant of a child's voice,
yeah,
we might as well shut our society
yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah. So great learning, and thank you so much. I wouldn't say let us stop it here. I would say pause it here because we will
Yes,
meet again someday
yes, yes,
and we'll have some another great conversation. I know that there are so many things that we can talk about.
yes.
So
Thank you.
thank you so much,
Thank
Lakshmi Dee,
you.
for your
Thank you
time,
for this
and
lovely
from
time.
all my viewers, I thank you again and again. Again, we are so grateful, and have we would wish you a great Teachers' Day to all your teachers, to all my teachers, to teachers in all the schools in
Yes,
the
yes.
world, because whatever people say, we know that it's such an important thing that they are doing for the society. And
Absolutely,
with that,
absolutely.
Shabba Khair, Shubh Ratri, good night,
Good night. Good
and,
night.
and Jai Hind.
Jai
Now,
Hind.
Now, can I pause the session here?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you, viewers, for being with us on Brainstorming with Puneet Bhatnagar. And we will have another great session next time.